All right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your busy schedule to attend this webinar. My name is Sanjay Narang, and I work as Vice President Consulting in the Client Advisory Group at Synoptek. Uh, in the beginning of my career, I worked as a software consultant for many years, and in my current role, I work closely with clients to help them with their systems implementation initiatives. Today, we have an amazing panel of speakers with me. Debbie Zelten, Manan Thakkar, and Zach Frakes. Let us take a few moments for our panel to briefly introduce themselves. Debbie, could you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, hello, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. I'm Debbie Zelten, and I am the Director of Application Development and Business Intelligence. So all of the applications projects or support projects that we do run from my group, and we are a global group across the world, basically, and we can help you with anything that you need with those services.
Great. Thank you, Debbie. Zach?
Hello, everybody. My name is Zach Frakes. I work for Debbie as the Senior Manager of the Application Development and Management team. Basically, we are the ones that take on, you name it, with the website or application on any type of support, break fix, custom development, and everything that you need. We are technology agnostic, work with a complete global team, and we are here to help you any way we can.
Thank you, Zach. Manan?
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on which part of the world you are. This is Manan, and I've been into this industry for more than 15 years, mainly working around the application development, consulting, business analysis, and we help our customer to develop the strategy for the application management, maintenance, etc. So looking forward to help you guys and discuss with you around the challenges pertaining to this. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Manan. So today our webinar is on a very important topic, application maintenance. In this webinar, we will cover why organizations hesitate to modify their applications, the tangible and intangible loss of not maintaining the applications, why partner with an MSP for application support and maintenance. We'll also showcase a Synoptek case study, and towards the end, we'll have a Q&A session. So we encourage all of you to submit your questions via the Q&A box. And here we have Debbie. So Debbie, if you want to cover the first item on the agenda.
All right, thank you, Sanjay. I think we're going to start off with a poll question that you can answer as I'm talking. That first question is, are you struggling with a custom developed application in your enterprise? Some of the answers could be it's hampered your productivity, or somewhat it's hampered, or no, you're just here for knowledge. And then along with that question, if you want to answer how you are actually struggling, let us know how you're struggling. So I'll continue on with the next slide before we actually, as we wait for everyone to answer the poll question. So let's start off with why organizations hesitate to modify their applications, right? So many times, the top 5 reasons that we see on why people don't modify their applications is there's resistance from the team. And that can be for many of reasons, right? Some of the resistance is because they've created the application themselves and feel that it's working the way it should, and that they don't see the need to continually update it and enhance it as we move forward. It could be a skill set. Maybe you don't have the right skill set, that the people who have not actually developed the application have come in, and you don't actually have the skills on the team to be able to continue to modify the application. The other reason that sometimes we don't hesitate is, we have fear of what's going to happen if we modify something. We don't have the right controls in place or the right investigation on any integrated or dependent other applications or other APIs, or don't know what it's actually working with. So that's sometimes a reason why they don't want to modify, because they just don't want to break anything, because you might disrupt the business and cause more problems. So then we just kind of leave it there. The other reason is that there may not be any clear direction on from the leadership on what the strategy of maintaining an applications portfolio. Is it just to do break fix? Is there some sort of strategy to continually enhance it, to make it better as time goes on, to go along with the users? Do we have budget to be able to do that? What is the leadership's messaging around managing applications? So sometimes it's hard to understand what should be done, right? There's also not any clear direction or clarity around on what will it cost to actually continually upgrade all the components of the application, or what does it really take to maintain that application. So then, we tend to just leave it there until it gets outdated, right? So these are many different reasons that someone might hesitate. We hesitate to modify our applications. All right. Let me check to see if there's any poll questions. All right. So from that question, we have about 50-50 is that, yes, it has hampered productivity in the organization and somewhat hampered it. So basically 100% yes, there has been struggling in maintaining applications. And that is the response to the polls. Thank you, everyone. And we'll get into a discussion on that as we go to the Q&A section. So contrary to popular belief, basically, it's really not, application maintenance is really not just about fixing defects, but keeping that software product up to date, to make sure that it's performing at the levels that it needs to support the user groups, to support not just the features, functions, make sure there's any patches or maintenance things with respect to any other components that the application is working with, to really keep it up to date, to keep it performing, to keep it modernized, right? It's really just keeping it up to date with the business, the users, and what needs to be done. And Synoptek has a methodology around envisioning, which is basically understanding what your business goals are from a larger perspective, develop that, then you transform them, and then take that vision and start executing that, and then over time evolve it and continue to improve and support the ongoing processes and technology as you evolve your application from what you envisioned and you transformed and then you involved. So that is Synoptek's methodology that we use to help support our applications as we go through the process of the life cycle of an application. All right, some of the challenges with managing these mission critical applications that I'm sure many of you can identify with is, poor adoption or underutilization, right? So we haven't been able to, execute the processes because, we don't have the right tool sets or don't understand how to use the current tool sets. There are, potentially workarounds around processes that we've created to achieve some of the outcomes because it has gotten outdated. So then it makes it harder for us to actually manage that application because it's, very difficult, or it's been, hard to manage because of the state that the application is in at this time. Also, some of the challenge of managing that application is just business continuity. So we might work, the application might require you working with too many vendors, which will then impact your resolution time. So then if you do any maintenance, it just takes too long and then it disrupts your business, which you just don't want to have to work with a vendor that, would cause disruption, or it might take too much time. Or there might be some sort of vulnerability, right, to that application or that tool set. So you have to look at that. That's just a challenge that you have to come up with risk management plans to figure out how you can overcome some of those challenges. There's also redundant applications, right? So a lot of times an application is integrated with another application, and then sometimes it creates a disjointed experience for a user, or the business. And so then that is another challenge. Over redundancy creates like wasted investment. So you've spent time spending more time and having all of these you might have too many applications, and some of them are doing duplicate work across the organization. So sometimes you have to have a strategy around how are you going to look at all those different applications over time and what's really being used, what's really needed. Security and compliance is another challenge, right? If you don't have you have a risk of loss potentially if you don't come up with a plan on how you're going to handle your security. And you need to also make sure that you have the right items in place, your mitigation plans for any violations of regulatory and compliance requirements, which also can be around security and just compliance around those requirements. And you have to keep your applications up to date with those compliance items, with specific items in the healthcare industry and or the financial services industry, with those things. And you have to continually keep your applications up to date to meet those compliance. And those sometimes come down so quickly that you need to actively manage those requirements. Then also the challenges obviously is maintaining your aging applications. As the technology evolves, there's, these applications sometimes have built in older technology, so there's not talent available to actually maintain or improve that application. And it's difficult to find support for these aging apps. We do have experience with people coming to us looking for skill sets of an application that was built, 15, 20 years ago, looking for a very specific resource to support a very specific technology. And it just is a rare skill set, therefore costs more. And sometimes it just makes sense to think of another option, like even move to modernization to be able to support, to be able to like continue the support of that app, which would be less expensive. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague Manan to talk about the next several slides.
Thanks, Debbie. So now when we talk about the application management or application maintenance, I think one important factor as to why it should be considered and when it should be considered. And I think the biggest factor is the cost of waiting. So if the application is not managed properly, if you are trying to delay in managing that efficiently, what all impact it can have. And one of the biggest thing, I think Debbie has highlighted a lot of issues regarding the application maintainability, stability, and things like that. So one of those key aspects is that if we leave the application mismanaged or unmanaged, there are a lot of security compliance related issues that can happen because of that. And you can see here that there are certain reports that we have quoted here. More than 30,000 websites are hacked every day. And one of the critical thing that has been reported by FBI recently is that there is after this COVID-19 pandemic, there are 300% of increase in the overall cybercrime that has been reported straight in US. Now, because of that, I think what is important is to really understand that why this application should be managed. And some of the things are if there are difference in terms of how application is managed, that can cause a heavy impact on how the application is being recovered in case of disaster. And ultimately that leaves experience which is not desirable to the user. Ultimately your brand, your application is what is being faced or being used by the external as well as internal users. And that can create a lot of impact if the user experience is compromised. And one of the reasons why sometimes organizations struggle in terms of managing those applications is deficit of right skilled resources. Because what is going to happen is if you are operating on a legacy technology, or if there are issues or challenges in terms of resources, not only just in terms of the technology resources, but anything pertaining to maintaining and managing application with 100% uptime with the optimal performance. So because of that, all these challenges, it may lead to loss of information, because if your application is not able to cope up with the trends or whatever is happening in the external world, it may sometimes fall behind in terms of the overall experience that users are facing. It might have some security loopholes which are interjected because of some of the vulnerabilities. And you can see that all this companies or the vendors likes of Microsoft, Amazon, they keep on coming up with the security patches. And if those are not being managed properly, then sometimes it may lead to a lot bigger losses. And as we progress further in this presentation, we'll talk about some of those numbers as well, how costly it can be to really not manage the application properly. So going forward into this, we can see here is that how this can be exactly costly. And some of these numbers you can see here is that in the industry, more than 80% of CIOs feel that application services and maintenance processes are insufficient as they deal with and resolve the application incidents one case by case basis. Because of this, what is happening is that instead of having a proper strategy, if you're just relying on a specific kind of break fixes that is coming along your way, then it might result in kind of having a bigger problems and bigger issues at your end. Almost more than half of the people that has been interviewed or from which the opinions have been taken across the industry verticals, it is noted that everybody feels that this is one of the area where the technology investment should be higher and should be consistent, because that's where if you can't cope up with the latest trend in technology and not able to match what is happening uh, in the technology space, and if you're not keeping all the applications updated, then it will have lots such ramification which will not be able to recover later on. And another issue that happens is because if the compromise is there on the user experience or kind of availability of the system, drastically it may happen that one such statistic is that almost 30% of users stop using it. So the overall adaptability and usability of the application reduces, and that's a huge number, because if you are developing the application for business, or if you have implemented a tool or a system for your internal users to use it, which is mainly meant for improving their productivity, and if it is not solving that problem, then that's where it starts falling apart. Your investments are not really giving that fruitful benefit that you are actually expecting. And because of that, what happens is many of the business application or enterprise application, almost half of the employees are not satisfied with it. And that is one of the biggest reason for that is how poorly some of these applications are being managed. They are not getting the enough kind of support that they're expecting, because we need to admit that many of these organizations where you can see that the internal IT team is capable of handling some of the basic issues, but when it comes to some of the complex issues, some critical security events, or some mass updates that need to be made, this is where the things start getting a little bit challenging for those teams. And that's where I think you need proper set of processes in place, you need proper set of skills in place, as well as a right set of strategic minds helping you in terms of what needs to be done in order to ensure that your application's adaptability is there, your application is secure enough, as well as it has right set of user experience, so that it has been well accepted by all the user community for which it is intended to be. And one of the critical reason is the data security, because of which sometimes it becomes really difficult to cope up with the overall application management. And you can see here the more than 3.92 million US dollar is an average cost of any data breach, be it a data breach, or you can say that any kind of ransomware attack or anything, where any security breach will result in its monetary hit is there, but apart from that, it is also one of the critical factor where organizations are losing their reputation. and the overall impact from the reputation perspective, which results into the brand image and the overall impact that one would see in the acceptance of the particular brand, is really enormous. So because of that, if the applications are not managed properly, then it will have a lot of effect, which will ultimately going to cause a lot more money than you would have actually spent in just managing these applications in the right manner. So when we talk about, we understood that how this application needs to be managed and why it should be managed, but one of the key aspect of, or I would say the benefit of going for this application upgrade and maintenance, uh, I've been highlighting the performance issue, which is very crucial. Industry has benchmark of around 2 to 3 seconds for any kind of pages. If your application is not providing that kind of issues that are coming out, where users are not able to access the application or the performance is quite low. So because of that, your system usability decreases. Hence, it is very important that your application is upgraded and managed properly. So because of that, you can also ensure the business continuity. So that's another benefit that you can got. And all this is, as I mentioned earlier, that reduces your cost, and basically it increases the overall ROI, and the total cost of ownership also gets reduced, because ultimately you are compliant with all the patches that are coming out by the vendors. You're ensuring that all the best practices as far as the security is concerned being followed. Your vendor both are compliant with that. So ultimately it derives the long-term value for managing those applications more efficiently. And because of all these applications are being managed properly, ultimately, because your brand value gets increased, and you get the competitive advantage over any of your other competitors or the peers who are not having these applications being managed properly. So because of all this benefits, I think it makes complete sense to have your all the applications, internal as well as external, being managed properly through a qualified vendor. Now, before going further, I think we have one more poll that is coming up. So the question is, are you opening to partnership with an MSP for an app upgrade and maintenance? So you will have the answer options available with you. So by the time you answer these questions, I'll hand it over back to Debbie to take it forward from here.
Okay. We also have, I'm not sure what poll is coming up right now, but there's another poll that we're going to do at the same time, which was, so we're going to ask both these questions. For those of you who are struggling with a developed application in the enterprise, what's your biggest maintenance challenge? So you should be able to see that. For those of you struggling with a custom developed or an application in enterprise, what's your biggest maintenance challenge? And you could see the answers and respond as I go through these slides. And there's the other question that will show up as well, which I'll repeat again after this poll. All right, so to continue on, thank you, Manan. Why should you partner with a managed service provider for application upgrade and maintenance? So many of the reasons that you can obviously partner with an MSP is really to leverage their expertise, because they do this day in and out. They provide, many of the managed service providers out there provide consulting services, preventative maintenance, right? Continuing talking about the things that we've talked about in the last several slides, performance optimization, upgrades and patches, real-time support, and help desk support. So when you are leveraging all of the things that the managed service provider has, then you are able to focus your people on more bigger and higher level business related things to helpfully increase your revenue or decrease your cost. In addition, you can leverage our expertise in the areas of security maintenance, the customer experience, any of the systems integration that your application may be involved with, right? Because there's a lot of integrations usually between data or other applications in those applications. We can help with your cloud compatibility. A managed service provider can help you with cloud compatibility and any migration, if that's in your roadmap, to continue to keep it maintained at a costly manner and with the right modernized technology. The MSP can also help you with any of the systems integration issues that you may have or needs. Also handle risks. And then also, if you do have a team of people, we can help with upskilling your employees, right? So we can work right along with your team to help then upskill them. So an MSP can help out in many of these things because they can provide many different services, because that is their usually their bread and butter of their business. And then your team can be leveraged to do what they know best as well. So if we go back to the poll, I don't think I can see any of the answers for that second poll. So I'm going to continue on. So one of the 7 best practices for successful application upgrade and maintenance, right, is to really use an experienced partner. So you can leverage the experience of a partner to be able to do many of the things and many of the challenges that we talked about in some of the earlier slides, to be able to really continually keep that application upgraded and maintained, right? You can train your team, right? Or we can help, an MSP can help train your team. Make sure that the people who are supporting the application have the skill set needed to support the application in all the different areas of security, performance, and just development. You also want to make sure that you document your strategy for the application. Are you going to, evolve to the cloud? Is your strategy to just continue with break fix? Is your strategy to just keep it or to actually evolve it and actually add additional features and keep it up to date with the latest technology? What is the strategy for that application? That would be important, is what the area of maintaining your application, as well as you want to test for that user experience, right? You want to continually test and make sure that the users are, being able to use it successfully, efficiently, and they're not having issues. So you don't have any user adoption issues or even just using it, or that it's, potentially degraded in their experience as time has evolved throughout the use of your application. Make sure people are actually using it, and test to make sure that there's and understand that. Be flexible and adaptable to user needs, what the application is evolving to. Also report on, how it's doing, how it's being used, et cetera, to management. Understand, the costs involved and all the different components of an application. And also you want to follow the ITIL and DevOps practices when you're doing application maintenance, right? So you're recording everything as an incident, understanding the service levels, and utilizing the DevOps practices where you're able to deploy and release at a frequency according to your strategy as you either build new features and or do break fix. And you can create an automated pipeline around DevOps to be able to utilize, version control and deployment, and allowing you to deploy in a very automated fashion so that you can reduce the time that it takes to take down your application while you do that. So those are some of the best practices for upgrade and maintenance. And I'm going to go back to the poll. So did you guys, I want to make sure that everyone was able to answer the second question. I think everybody said that the biggest struggle with custom legacy applications in enterprise, your maintenance challenge, is that 100% of you who are on this webinar said that finding the right talent to support the application is your challenge. So sounds like the skill set and finding people to manage. The last question that Manan mentioned, so I'm going to mention it again. Are you opening to partnering with an MSP for application upgrade and maintenance? So we will wait for the answers there, and then I think I'm going to turn this over to my colleague Zach, and then he can also report on the poll results as you get a chance to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I really appreciate it. So you've heard about the benefits of maintenance. You heard about the consequences or potential consequences of non-maintenance. So what does a good management maintenance support model look like? If an MSP is going to go ahead and provide this type of a service, there needs to be a multi-tiered approach. You have to have skill sets that are wide-ranging and can take on just about anything that comes at them. So one approach here is where the incoming is coming in, which is the tiered 1 level. And that's where you have the actual response. This is where the monitoring happens. This is where the service desk kicks in. This is where the global operations and the global support can come in. So if there's any alerts that come through on a website or an application, it'll get picked up here. If there's basic user things that need to be done, such as user management, password unlocks, or password resets, account unlocks, new account setups, things like that, or just basic user training. This is a really good place to put that, is in this tier 1 level, because these are the people that are on the front lines. So if you look at it, when it comes to an application or a website that needs to be maintained, it needs to be managed, it needs the security updates, as we heard, and it needs the framework updates. You have to have all the version updates taken care of. All of this stuff needs to happen. It's that frontline defense, though, that you really, really need to have watching everything 24/7. It needs to be there to support you. With that, you get the basic break fix to go along with it, content updates if needed, things along that nature. Now, as you're going through, obviously we have 2 different types of things that come in. You have incidents and you have requests, right? An incident is one of those things that can ruin your day at the office, right? An incident is one of those things where your application's coming down, or it's not functioning properly, or there's a major feature that has just stopped working. It happens from time to time. What's really nice about having an MSP that's watching all this is they can react instantly to that. They can do some basic break fix checking, they can do some troubleshooting, and then they can immediately dispatch up to the next tier if that's what needs to happen. That's where you can get the advanced break fix, the minor enhancements, and so forth. So with that level of the tier 2, tier 3, that's where a bulk of the work is going to happen inside of that application maintenance. That's where you're going to have the proper release management that's going to do the source control, that's going to make sure that all the deployments are happening properly, the continuous development process is actually working correctly. That's where all your patch management and backups are going to be maintained as well. When I'm saying patch management, everything from a content management system to a custom built application all has to be managed. It all has to be managed, upgraded, maintained, patched. You want to make sure that security is always going to be up. You want to make sure the versions are always going to be current. And the only way to do that is to have a regular management system in place, a regular patch management and backup system. It should be scheduled. It should be a team that is dedicated to the technology that your application is built in. But there also needs to be resources that team can reach out to should something else come up that is beyond that skill set. And that's where a good MSP is going to come in to say, hey, Les, we have application support, we have application management, we have database support, we have infrastructure support. So everything about your application is taken care of. It is covered. And that's where you can also get your advanced break fix. This is the stuff where there's a feature that's not working, that's going to need some help. That's where you're actually going to get the developers going in to look at the actual code itself and start figuring out where the disconnect is. Now, these are all incident requests, okay, or they're management requests. But to go another step beyond that, got to make sure that you also have that last tier, that tier 3, tier 4, which is your advanced development. Now these are the basically the guru developers that can pretty much code anything that you're going to need and can fix anything that you need and get it back up and running, or provide you the new feature, provide you the new item that you're looking for, provide that advanced updates that you're going to need, which every site and every application does need it. That's where you can actually formulate the advanced plans. This is where your future planning comes in, because it's not just about maintaining the application or the site as to how it exists now. It's about planning for the future as well. It's about looking at where technology is going. It's about looking where your business is going. It's about looking to where your site needs to be, not just now, but 2 years from now, 3 years from now. Where are you going as a company to where that MSP and that development team can actually help you get there, and make sure that you are going in the right direction at all times. Make sure that the planning's in place. Make sure that the hardware is keeping up. Make sure the infrastructure is keeping up. So that's where the good levels and the tiered approach comes in really, really handy. So you're always getting that maintenance. And then if that middle tier, which is doing a bulk of the work, runs into a problem that they cannot resolve, they can instantly grab their tier 3, tier 4 assistant and the other development teams and say, hey, let's get in this and let's figure this out. So how does this look in the real world? Okay, so we have examples, we have some really bad statistics out there, a 300% increase since COVID hit and since people are coming in, staying at home more. There's been huge increases. It's been seen across the board of incidents where sites are going down, or either infrastructure is not keeping up or security is not keeping up. So how does this look like in the real world? So we have a company here, we have a client here who over the last 12 plus years has been building upon their product, has been building upon their offerings. When they first started, they had a website just like every other company does, right? It was out there, but they needed to do more. They didn't know how to get there. They had problems with stability. They had problems with being able to have a good user experience for their customers. And this is a client that does B2B and B2C at the same time. So they have a wide audience that they have to attract and that they have to stick with. As they've been growing to the over 1,200 employees that they have now, they needed to have their public-facing internet presence keep up with them. They needed the stability, they needed the safety, they needed the security, they needed the features. By using the proper methodology of management, it was very easy to deploy 2 different teams that would keep up with everything that they had going on. And this is exactly why having a good plan in place and having a good provider helping you out and watching over you comes into play. You have the regular maintenance that's going on to keep things up and running as well as possible and to keep them stabilized. Also to point out, with the regular reporting, as Debbie mentioned before, regular monthly reports or quarterly reports to show, hey, here's where you have some performance issues. Here's where you have some stability issues. Being able to plan for that and move forward and be able to plan the next steps of the new sites, 4 different websites where you get a 75% increase in SEO rankings. So, or page load time, a 75% increase, SEO rankings up by 4. I mean, all of these stats are great, but it's the reliability. It's being able to keep it up and running, making sure that you're not going to be one of those security breaches. So stability and performance is huge. Proper management maintenance with a tiered approach to plan for the future and the current is also huge. And I know we're starting to run low on time, so I don't want to take too much of it on the success story here, but I wanted to point out just some of those little key factors that the good MSP is going to support you every single step of the way, from design to build to support, management, and future. And with that, I will turn it back over to Debbie to take us through the next piece.
All right, thanks. I'm going to give you the quick on the last poll. 100% of you said that you're opening to partner with an MSP. So thank you so much. We'll follow up with that. But as we wrap up this webinar, just want to let you know some of the product development services that Synoptek provides, as we are one of those managed service provider that also provides all sorts of other services as well as application development services. We have teams that do UI UX development. Obviously, we do custom software development, DevOps services, QA testing services, support and maintenance that we just talked about, mobility and IoT services and support, and then as well as application modernization services. So we have the full suite of product development services, as well as, we develop new products, as well as modernized products, as well as support these different areas of product development or software development, and in many different technologies. All right, and I'm going to turn it back to Sanjay to wrap this up.
All right, thanks, Debbie. Just a quick overview of Synoptek. We are a global systems integrator and managed IT services provider, founded in the year 2001. We provide end-to-end services using our global delivery model. Our services include data insights, business applications, workforce productivity, custom app development and maintenance, cloud advancement, infrastructure performance, and cybersecurity. We got a number of questions, so let's move to the Q&A session. And all right, first question is it better to replace the legacy systems or upgrade and maintain them? Debbie, you want to take this question?
Yep, and then I will pass it off to Zach as well. So I think there's a lot of assessment that we would do to look at the legacy system to understand what it's built in, to determine whether it should be replaced or upgraded. We would take a look at the performance, the users, the functions. Is it meeting the business process? What's it taking to support it, et cetera. So I would think we would look at across a series of criteria to determine whether or not you should upgrade it or just maintain it before we could make that decision. So we would do an assessment. I'm going to turn this over to Zach to have him add on to my answer, because I know we will have more to say.
Yes, you are absolutely correct. Yes, we do an assessment. Sometimes legacy systems can be upgraded, they can be managed, and sometimes that works out to be a better solution for the client. We take each individual application and we evaluate it as its own entity to determine what the best course of action is going to take, or what the best course of action to take is. It really depends on the technology that it's in and what direction it's going to go from there. On that, we have another question that came in. Do you do a quick assessment of the ecosystem to decide whether replacement or upgrade will be a better option? Yes, we do. We have several teams. We have infrastructure teams, application teams, database teams, cloud teams. We can pretty much assess any system to determine what the best option is going to be. Sometimes on-prem, sometimes cloud, sometimes application, sometimes rebuild. We can actually do the assessments on the fly relatively quickly, depending on how complicated your system really is to look at.
All right. Thanks, Debbie. Thanks, Jack. Another question which has come up is, does Synoptek provide staffing options for long-term application maintenance needs? Anyone wants to take it, Debbie or Manan?
Yeah, so we can provide different models based on what your needs are as well. We're flexible in terms of those models, which could be anything from a full team, where we provide the user interface, the QA testers, the business analysts, the developers in the technology that need, or we can provide fractional hours of each one of those different skill sets to provide you with a team to provide you the support that you're trying to achieve.
All right. Thank you, Debbie. Next question is, does Synoptek have 24/7 application support?
Yeah, so as a managed service provider, we have a 24/7 help desk that that provides us with that 24/7 with escalation paths to support teams for any incidents that may come in.
Okay, thanks, Debbie. One last question, maybe because we are running out of time. Does Synoptek provide DevOps services? Manan, if you want to take that.
Yes, we do. And I think Synoptek has a good amount of consultant providing this kind of services. So end-to-end DevOps, starting with the implementation of that and managing the DevOps for client. And we do offer the implementation of DevOps using a lot of cloud-based tools as well. And we manage them as we go forward in the overall engagement.
All right, thanks, Manan. So we are running out of time. Hope you have found the webinar to be interesting and valuable. Please feel free to reach out to us in case you have any further questions or need additional information. Thanks again for attending this webinar. Have a great day. Thank you so much.